Well, he was a legendary figure in our state.
Remarkable, remarkable, remarkable individual.
He made a real mark on the history of our state, of our community.
An honest man whose yes means yes and no means no.
If he said it, you could take it to the bank.
Integrity, power, and influence.
In many ways, he was special.
He was very much a kingmaker in the classic sense of the word.
He was a great, great guy, and still is. You know, we're not talking about somebody in the past tense here.
People have accused him of very much of being a bully, and he could be a bully.
A lot of people thought he was a son of a bitch, and I did too from time to time.
He knew how to raise his voice, he knew how to pound the table, and when he wanted to make a point, you wouldn't miss the point.
Oh yeah, he has a growl about, I'm going to tell the vice president.
If you could survive working with and for him, you could probably survive anything.
He's not a very good golfer, but he's a very intense golfer.
He had a temper, and he had a very colorful use of language.
He never lacked for an opinion about much.
It would be almost an artistic use of profanity flying in your direction.
When you needed a forceful advocate, there was nobody better than this guy.
It was like working, in a hurricane every day.
Our candidate here began in very humble beginnings.
He had a combination of that toughness that was born on the east side of Wilmington, over by where Gander Hill Prison is today.
He grew up on the wrong side of the tracks and clearly admitted it. He said, I came from a very, very modest family and a very modest background, and I'm very proud of what I've been able to accomplish.
He was very proud of his Italian-American heritage, of course, and part of that was all about family, church and family and community, and that's what he was all about.
He loved the law. He was a real professional at that.
Remember, he started off as a sole practitioner and ended up as the senior partner in probably the state's most richest and distinguished law firm.
One of the top 2 or 3 attorneys in this state, and was recognized for his just supremely capable political instincts and his just plain common sense.
His success is not only a function of how hard he always had worked and his just sheer ability, but his tenacity, his persistence, and his ability to put deals together.
He knew how to make a deal. He knew how to make it so everybody gave a little, everybody got a little.
The thing that really made him important, he had a way of building trust in everybody he dealt with.
He mastered the Delaware way, the technique of Democrats and Republicans working together as he championed the Financial Center Development Act.
He was the author of the legislation that was the most important piece of legislation passed in Delaware in the last 100 years.
People forget how difficult it was in the 70s and the early 80s. They were tough times.
In 1970, we were in the middle of a deep financial crisis, and the Financial Center Development Act pulled us out of that crisis and really spurred the growth that we saw in the 1980s.
Financial Center Development Act, that has a nice ring to it.
We went from like 2,500 people in the banking industry to 40,000.
Through the Financial Center Development Act and other related banking bills, he brought a kind of sophisticated commercial work to all of the Delaware firms that I don't think existed prior to the early 80s.
Plus he had a way about him. He was a leader. People would follow him, and he was a leader in that he told you exactly what he thought. He didn't pull any punches.
He was a tough political activist, but he saw both sides of all issues.
He was not always the most popular man in the community or in the room, but when there were tough things that had to be done, he was almost inevitably the one guy that people would go to get things done.
When he spoke with authority. I mean, he didn't beg and plead and cajole, but he would say, now look, this is what the law is, this is what our situation is, this is what we needed, and this is what it's your duty to do.
This was not milquetoast sort of work that he did and those of us that worked with him did. This was tough, bare knuckles, hard work.
And because he was so respected, people listened to him.
It speaks volumes to the respect with which our honoree is held by people of all walks.
He brought that toughness into whatever debate he was involved in, whatever discussion he was involved in legislatively. And it was in a unique and incredible combination of talent and grit and knowledge and devotion to his community.
Our honoree was the type of person that enjoyed helping people.
If it was good for the community, then he'd do it. And he did it really pro bono in almost every case.
He also did a lot of things nobody knows about. I mean, he helped both nonprofits and individuals, and he really never looked for credit on those things.
And all of the untold stories of the thousands of dollars and thousands of hours of time he's given of himself to support people and communities.
Although he had one of the most successful legal practices in our state, did very well for years, he never forgot that that came with a corresponding responsibility to give back to the community, to have the community's best interest at heart, and to remember that we're all in it together.
The city of Wilmington was a place that he loved, and he put a lot of attention into making sure that community service organizations, particularly those that were run by the church, and St. Anthony's in particular, were strong, were financed well, and did the great work that they sought out to do.
He did an enormous amount of work pro bono for the Catholic diocese.
He was the legal counsel for St. Anthony's his whole career, keeping Father Roberto out of trouble.
He told me that St. Anthony of Padua was both his most difficult client and his best client.
Besides being a well-respected member of this Delaware community, our honoree was the family man.
His wife and his 2 children meant the world to him.
Wonderful family, wonderful supportive wife. He never would have been able to do everything he did, frankly, without her cooperation and support.
This is an award that is given to people who have been true leaders, not just in business, but in civics as well.
I think probably we're all indebted to him. The state's a better place as a result of his activity.
He and his family have been just incredibly gracious and supportive of people in the community. I can't think of a better and more deserving recipient than him.
And I think that really is the tradition of what this Marvel Cup is about, and I can't imagine a more deserving or fitting winner.
And everybody that knew him loved him, and he had to have had great satisfaction in his lifetime for his accomplishments, because he did well in everything he touched.
He became the think tank, the mediator, the individual who put together different programs that helped with economic development in the city of Wilmington initially, and then later for the entire state of Delaware. And for that he deserves a great deal of credit.
Not only did he make an enormous contribution in the business world, but he also was such a leader in the philanthropic world. What a great gift he has been to our whole community.
I just think we've done ourselves proud in honoring him with the Marvel Cup this year.
As a great family man, as someone who's dedicated himself to philanthropy and engagement in the community, and as someone who's an excellent and accomplished professional, I can think of no one more deserving of this year's Marvel Cup than the winner, who will be soon announced.
Ladies and gentlemen, our Marvel Cup award winner for this year is Frank Biondi.